The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, opposite the temple, and began to talk to the disciples about the end, which is to come. In those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heaven will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. From the fig tree learn this lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things I have described taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father knows. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I recall when I was a young boy, the last Sunday of the year was always the gospel about the end of the world and the final coming of Jesus Christ to judge the living and the dead. It was kind of scary because all this stuff was going to be happening, things are going to be falling apart and so on. But I felt a kind of a peaceful sense that Jesus is going to come and make everything right. All forms of sin and injustice will be revealed, and all the goodness of people will be revealed. And I thought that's wonderful because I had a sense already at that time that the bad guys often get away with stuff, and innocent people suffer an awful lot, which seemed unfair to me. But I was comforted by the thought that it's all going to be judged correctly at the end. And Jesus will take care of all of that. So I felt pretty good. Fast forward about 20 years, and I'm watching a PBS special on the terrible Johnstown, Pennsylvania flood of 1889. And it was very clear in that presentation that flood did not have to happen. A dam broke. The dam was built by rich people from Pittsburgh who built the dam because he wanted a nice waterfall and a pool where they could have some good fishing. But for years, the State Department of Natural Resources kept warning them that the dam was getting weaker and weaker. It needed to be repaired and strengthened, but nothing was done. And of course, finally, when this great storm of water came, rain came, there was so much water that the dam finally broke, and it rushed right through the town, wiped out houses and buildings, and hundreds of people died needlessly. An example of how neglect and special interests caused this terrible loss of life. Today, you and I are saddened and sickened by what's happened in Paris yesterday, right, or last evening. The same thing, why do people have things like that? Why do they do things like that to kill and hurt other people? It just makes life seem such an unfair situation, okay? And so once again, we are comforted in our faith by the fact that somehow God is able to bring good out of all that stuff. But there's a certain sense that life is not fair, okay? Innocent people suffer, and evil people often enjoy all kinds of good stuff. So, we today pause to take a look at that great mystery of God's final plan for the end of the world, the final judgment, when all things are going to be made right. The people who have worked so hard and try to be so good are going to be rewarded with eternal reward. Those who have done evil will have to suffer eternal punishment. That's the Bible and the Catechism are very clear about that there's a final judgment upon the whole human family. And so we, in our part then, have to really say, how am I living right now so that I can really enjoy the favor of God and the blessing of God when this final judgment takes place? We're just going to sit around and wait for the end? No, that's not what it's all about. We have a calling, we have a vocation to make this world a better place, to take care of the people in this world, to take care of this beautiful planet of ours. That's our vocation. We don't just sit around and wait for the end. And you know something else? We're going to meet wonderful people. We'll hear their stories. People who, for example, suffered in concentration camps and gave away their last piece of bread so one of their fellow workers could not starve to death. People, parents who took care of handicapped children or aging parents at great sacrifice. People who worked so hard to bring about a better society. People, soldiers who gave their life to save their buddies' lives. All kinds of heroic stories will come to light in that final judgment. There will be the judge, Jesus, will be able to reveal to us the secrets of the hearts, to the praise and glory of the people who are trying to serve God well. And so the final judgment is both scary in one sense, but much more a source of our hopes, that all the evils of the world are going to be redressed and there will be justice finally. And meanwhile, we don't just sit around and twiddle our thumbs, okay? We engage ourselves. We involve ourselves. We try to make a difference in the building a better world. Let me give a beautiful story about a man named Robert D. Lorenzo. He was an Argentinian golfer, and he won all kinds of tournaments, okay, all over the world, including 8 PGA tournaments in this country. Well, one day after he won a tournament, he's walking to the parking lot, and he meets this young woman who says that she has a very sick child in the hospital who's dying, and she can't afford to keep him there. So he takes out the check he just got for his winning the golf tournament and made it out to her and gave it to her to take care of that little baby. Well, a week later, he's in a restaurant, and a friend comes up to him and says, I heard that you gave away this big check to this woman. And he said, yeah, that's right. And the friend said, well, you know, the fact is she was a con artist. She's a phony. You were conned, my friend, he said to Robert. Robert said, you mean there was no sick, dying baby? And the guy said, no. And Robert said, you know, that's the best news I've heard all week. Now, isn't that wonderful? Now, you see, I think our call is you and I can bring some good news into our small part of the world this week, okay, this week, by being the kind of Christian we are called to be, by being that light in the world, okay, and the salt for the earth that Jesus called us to be. Then we can face the final judgment with great peace and great confidence that we are embraced in the wonderful universal love of our God.